As you may realize, not every great speaker has the ability to help others improve. Our conference opening keynote speaker is one of those rare professionals who can deliver great presentations, which you don't want to miss this Friday night, and teach others to take their presentations to a new level. Patricia Fripp is a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, executive speech coach, sales presentation expert. In the March issue of Vital Speeches of the Day, a speech she wrote for one of her executive clients was featured alongside presidents and world leaders. Her coaching clients include executives, engineers, sales professionals, and seasoned professional speakers. Patricia is now virtually everywhere with her interactive training, which is web-based, called Fripp VT, on powerful, persuasive presentations. Today, she's here to help us. Let us welcome 5 fellow Toastmasters who will be in the hot seat. And now, Patricia Fripp.
Well, thank you everybody for taking your time to invest in your speaking career. You will find you have 5 very brave participants, because not only are they opening themselves up for critique, they are also understanding that the recording of their presentation will be on YouTube. All the presentations are good. My job is to make them great. What you will hear at the beginning are specific techniques I'm recommending to each speaker. In my keynote on Friday, many of these techniques will be well developed. So with that, let's get on with the excitement. Back to you. Let's introduce our first speaker.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, let's get our first volunteer under the magnifying glass. Let's welcome our first speaker, Daryl Chang. Daryl has been a member of Babe Law Speakers for the last 9 years and is working to obtain his DTM. He owns a health clinic in Midtown Toronto and is looking for a way to educate potential clients in an unconventional therapy known as osteopathy. Today, Daryl will be offering an excerpt from his presentation, Daryl Chang, How to Heal Your Pain Naturally and Enhance Your Health. How to Heal Your Pain Naturally and Enhance Your Health, Daryl Chang.
Thank you. As a health clinic owner, I want to offer you an unconventional way to reduce your pain naturally. You've probably heard of the different ways to seek pain relief. You have massage therapists, chiropractors, physiotherapists, even your medical doctor, and even pain medication. But what happens when you've tried everything under the sun, but your pain remains? Over the past 10 years, I've owned 2 health clinics and that have been known for something called osteopathy. I used to even own the largest osteopathic clinic in Ontario. My chief concern today is to make you more aware of your options when it comes to managing your pain. Here's how osteopathy works. Osteopathy is a gentle, hands-on therapy that is used to reduce pain in these areas: acute or chronic pain, migraines and headaches, postural problems, stress and anxiety, muscle spasms, and digestive concerns. An important principle of osteopathy is restoring blood flow. That's paramount. Typically, the chief source of pain is because there is a lack of blood flow. Do you ever get pins and needles when you slept on your arm for far too long? How do you fix that? Usually you shake your arm and get that blood circulation going. Yet most of the difficult pain, such as muscle spasm and chronic pain, you can't simply just shake it off. what do you do? That's where manual practitioners come in to tackle the more challenging pain to restore the blood flow to the affected area. Another way to understand osteopathic manual practitioners is by two ways. They are detectives and body mechanics. How are they detectives? Well, osteopathic manual practitioners are trained to locate at the root cause of the pain, not just cure the symptoms. Let me give you an example. One of our practitioners, Clara, she had a client that had one side of her face that was puffier than the other. After taking a thorough history, she found out the client was delivered years ago using forceps. And so when you pull the baby using the forceps, it actually elongated her face, stretching the structures and some of the blood flow, restricting some of the blood flow. So what Clara did was to work on the structure and also to find all the blood vessels that were restricted and return them back to their normal position. This reduced the puffiness of her face. By discovering the root cause, Clara was able to provide a solution that help the issue go away permanently rather than just temporarily. Osteopaths are also body mechanics. An osteopathic manual practitioner is trained for at least 5 years in Ontario, and they really study how the body works. They see how the bones, muscles, organs, and major circulatory and respiratory systems all interact with each other and make sure that they're working in optimum order. And so an osteopath can also help restore the body back to alignment. Another example involves my good friend Natasha. She broke her leg a few years ago, and once it healed, when she started running, it was still causing some pain. So she went back to her medical doctor, who slapped up the x-ray and said, hey, the bone's healed, so you shouldn't have any more pain. Well, that didn't really solve the pain, so she went to a physiotherapist, and that didn't resolve the pain. She finally went to the osteopath, and what so happened there was she found out that the bone was actually slightly rotated because the tissue or the fascia was actually had the tension that was holding that bone in a rotated position. So the osteopath worked to release that tension in the tissue and return the bone back to the proper position. Now, the osteopathic manual practitioner is trained to know the intimate parts of your body fully to how to restore that to full alignment. So how effective is osteopathy? Let me give you one more example talking about the tooth pain. And this involved my wife, and she had a tooth extraction a few years ago. And she was in pain after the tooth extraction for 2 weeks. So she finally went back to the dentist and said, hey, my tooth is still in pain. He said, why don't we wait another 2 weeks? And if you're still in pain, we'll fix it. Well, let me tell you, no person wants their wife to be in pain for a month. So I suggested that she go and see one of our osteopaths. And so within an hour, the osteopath actually relieved the pain. And what the osteopathic manual practitioner did was they knew where the blood vessels were located and which ones were compressed. And they worked to resolve that compression by removing that restriction. So let me tell you that osteopathic manual practitioners are versatile and understand the whole body structure to get at the root of the problem.
Very good job. Now, I can review what is sent to me in advance and then what I can hear. And I did send an email to everyone with a couple of suggestions. One, which was, and I'm going to tell everyone what was sent to me, because that's how I did my review, but good on you that you in fact did make a change. So this is what was sent to me. And there are many ways that you can open a presentation. I will deliver at least 4 wonderful ones on Friday. However, there is one way I highly recommend you never open a presentation. And this is what I first heard from Daryl when you sent your script, which I have here. Today, I'm here to talk about how to heal your pain naturally. Now, the intention is good because we all want to get our pain healed. However, at the beginning of a presentation, when we have no relationship with the audience, we would expect them, and some of them are thinking, so what, who cares? I signed up for this presentation to hear about relieving pain. Then your next sentence was, my aim today is for you to discover an unconventional way to reduce your pain. Now you're getting into it, and you got into this in the presentation we have. I would make it not about you. Nobody cares about your pain or your goal. One, it's you're in for a treat. In the next 30 minutes, you are going to learn a specific, little known way, or you could say a well-established, but frequently not understood way to relieve your pain naturally. Now I want it, because if there were one secret of how to deliver a fabulous presentation, even while you're developing your skills, it is have the audience interested in your subject. And when it's about them, not you, they are interested. I also have a bias, which you cut out of this, and that is the word today.
Yes.
Today is the most overused, impact diluting word in the English language, because everybody is smart enough to know when they're hearing your presentation. And today is 24 hours, and we give you 4.5 minutes. Now that is on there. Now let's go to what I heard, which was fabulous.
Thank you, Patricia.
And I am so glad that you were here, because my life is very much around helping professionals like you develop presentations that you deliver to service clubs or community groups for free. It is the best marketing and way to build your credibility in your community. And long before I thought I would be a speaker, that's exactly how I started. I had a men's hairstyling salon, and I delivered presentations to community groups. And after 2 free talks, I realized this, people who heard me speak came into my salon. So I congratulate you for making this a focus. Not only can you deliver this to service clubs, and the good news is all service clubs are now meeting virtually. You can get your message out in a bigger way if you have something else to sell, or if you can somehow virtually consult, but certainly in your own market. But even if you give speeches other places, you can put them on your website, cut them into chunks.
Sure. Yes.
You have great vocal variety, and you have a wonderful smile. Always smile at your audiences. What I'm recommending is that you restructure your presentation. You've got great content. You have 3 stories that we heard: Claire, Natasha, and your wife, and the tooth pain. I recommend you begin with a story. When I first met Claire, she said, "Doctor," or whatever she calls you. I don't know. What do your patients call you?
Oh, they just call me Daryl.
Okay.
It's informal.
All right. Well, so the first time I met Claire, she said, "Daryl, help." Because stories like this are on 3 parts: situation, solution, success. And this is what I work with salespeople all the time. Imagine your happy customer, now your happy patient Claire, comes into your office and says, "Help," and clearly articulates their problem. Now, it's easy with you because they clearly articulate where the pain is.
Yes.
They might even tell you, "I've been to this, and I'm still in pain." Now, when you're telling a story and you're delivering the dialogue, you can say almost anything, because it's coming out of their mouth. They say, "I heard, my friends told me you were the only person in the city to talk to."
Okay.
And if her friends recommended her, they probably did say that, even if it was in different words. A story needs to be true. It does not have to be 100% accurate. And what I mean by that is a story shrinks time. So we don't need to know that she called your office, she made an appointment, she canceled because she was nervous. That, you know, just it begins with that first conversation. And this is a technique of get into the scene late. We don't need any setup. We don't need to know how long you studied and got in the business. Not at this point. You just get us to the story.
Okay.
Then the situation you could say in your words, or you could do it to Claire. You could say, Claire, what we have a 3-step procedure. And then you explain to her, you're educating your audience what you do when you have pain. And then you might say, 3 months later, Claire walked in and said, I would not have believed it possible that. Then you say, welcome to, now you introduce them into the session. So you tell the story, then you transition in. Welcome to healing your pain naturally and enhance your health. Now, if you've got a 30-minute speech, you've already told a story. So then you say, in the next 23 minutes, you're going to hear about a revolutionary or an ancient, that is whatever you want to, exactly what you were saying.
Okay.
And then I liked very much, that was very clever about, there are 2 types, the detectives. Now I want, and the mechanics. Now I need you to clearly give the definition of, we all know what detectives and mechanics are. However, in one sentence, we are detectives just like Sherlock Holmes because, or a detective on a favorite modern, you know, for young people, I don't know if everyone knows who Sherlock Holmes is. Maybe that's aging me. However, there are more modern movies, but we are like a detective. Pick someone on popular culture if you like, but give me a specific so I can see the connection and I nod, and give me time to think, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then you describe how you help. Then you're going to, I think, was that helping Natasha? You want to tie the story you tell to that person. Then the other is a mechanic. And just like your favorite car mechanic, this. And then you tell a story that ties it in. You are going to talk about your practice and your techniques. However, do it more through stories. We can see, we can feel, we can connect. I tell all my sales clients, does it matter if they're asking for a demo if you haven't told them how long you've been in business? And I promise you, I congratulate you and I encourage you, continue perfecting this because it will be your best marketing. Good job.
Thank you very much, Patricia. I appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daryl and Patricia. Our next speaker is Irene Kunzenmann. Irene has been an avid Toastmasters for almost 4 decades. Over the years, she has come to appreciate the many opportunities for growth and development that membership in Toastmasters Club can offer. Irene is thankful for many things in her life. One of them is that she has made many friends in the Toastmasters organization, and she cherishes her relationships with them. Today, Irene will talk about what keeps a special personal relationship alive and well. Please welcome Irene Kunzenmann, Keeping It Together, Irene Kunzenmann.
I speak with some authority on the subject of relationships. I've been married for 64 years, and to the same man too. We've had our shares of ups and downs. I had my downs. For example, when I went away for the first time in our marriage without Ernie to attend a weekend conference with some of my lady friends, he didn't like it. I didn't know how much he didn't like it until I came home. He didn't speak to me for 1 week. Talk about a mega reaction. Do you know what it's like to live with someone who doesn't talk to you? Have I ever considered divorce? Never. Murder, yes. A relationship is hard work. It's like a full-time job. You need to pay attention to it. The love part is easy. Love is what makes marriage possible. It's the other components which challenge us. Communication, sharing the workload, letting the other one be. First, communication. When we were dating, we disclosed a lot of information about each other, our thoughts, our feelings. A few years into the marriage, we suddenly clam up. You have seen your spouse's long face. You have asked, what's the matter? What is the reply? Nothing. We need to talk with each other about what our concerns are, our irritations, our dislikes. If we keep it all inside, bottled up, it's called gunny sacking, by the way. One day, it's going to explode in our faces, and then we really are in trouble. Individual communication styles differ. Discover your spouse's style and learn it. I discovered Ernie's. He has long pauses. I learned to fill them. 2, sharing the workload at home. Does anyone here have the feeling that they have the lion's share of the household chores? Perhaps the problem is not as prevalent today, but I remember from times past. I have a friend who had several heated discussions with her husband about the division of housework. Then one day she came home from the office and she found every second room vacuumed, the dishes washed, the laundry done. This really lifted her spirits. Now, do we have to argue about pitching in? Of course not. What really touched my friend was when she found "I love you" drawn in the dust on every second shelf of the bookcases. Finally, let the other be. There seems to be a paradox. 2 people loving each other are like one, yet they remain separate individuals. Over the years, we grow as individuals. We may discover hidden talents in ourselves and develop new interests. This might add a new dimension to the relationship, but it also can be frightening to a partner. I suggest rejoice in each other's growth, show interest, offer encouragement. Khalil Gibran expressed it poignantly in his poem on marriage when he wrote, "Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone, even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music." And later, "Stand together, yet not too close together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow." Loving each other, communicating openly, sharing the workload, and letting the other one be are the ingredients, I believe, which hold a relationship together. In closing, I want to share with you a definition of what makes a marriage successful. At a recent gathering of friends, it was before COVID-19, we were discussing what keeps couples together. One chap said his success of a long marriage was due to a miraculous substance called love glue. While we pondered his words, his wife spoke up. "It wasn't love glue," she said. "It was crazy glue."
Wonderful job. Really superb. And I know everyone is thinking, wow, that is good. And one, congratulations on being in Toastmasters so long. And you have just given me a reason why I have always stayed single. But congratulations on straightening this man out. Good. Well, this, as you can see, was a great presentation. My recommendation is don't tell me as much as show me. Add dialogue whenever possible, and let us see what happens. Think visually, edit words, and present information in a certain order: when, where, who, what happened. I took your presentation, and taking that in mind, this is how I rewrote it. After 64 years of marriage, that puts what follows in the context. To the same man, I can talk with some authority on the subject of relationships. We've had our ups and downs, and at times I've had my doubts. I added doubts rather than downs, because you can imagine that women might be thinking, and probably you did I make a decision? So again, that's a suggestion, take it or not. Now, this is how I put together your weekend a little differently. I remember the first time I went away for a fabulous weekend conference with 4 of my lady friends. Now, I don't know how many lady friends you had. If you tell us, it's easier to see it. Ernie didn't like it, which I realized the moment I walked in the front door and shouted, "Honey, I'm home. We had such a great time. You'll enjoy hearing about it." No reply. No comment. No conversation at all for 1 week. 7 silent days. 7 silent nights. You have to admit, even if Ernie did not, that is a mega reaction. Do you know what it's like to live with a man who promised to live, who you promised to live with in sickness and health, who doesn't talk to you? I bet you're thinking, Irene, have you ever considered divorce? Ever? Murder? Yes. Based on my experience, you can feel confident that love is the easy part. A relationship is hard work. It's rather like a full-time job. You need to pay attention. Love is what makes marriage survive. It's the other components which challenge us. Here are my 3 recommendations to focus on. Communication. Have you noticed when you're dating, for the first few months, you stay up all night talking, you share your thoughts and dreams, your feelings and aspirations. A few years in the marriage, conversation dries up. How often have you seen your spouse with a long face and asked, honey, what's the matter? Only to always hear, nothing. My recommendation is to talk to each other about your concerns, irritations, and dislikes. If we bottle up our feelings and frustrations, it's called gunny sacking. One day it's going to explode. Then you're in real trouble. Individual communication style differ. If you want a rewarding relationship, discover your spouse style and learn it. I discovered Ernie's. He has long, week-long pauses in between. I learned to fill them. Share the workload at home. Do you feel that you're doing the lion's share of the household chores? This might apply more to us mature women. I remember my friend having heated discussions with her husband about the division of work. Now there, Irene, I believe you could tell us what she said. One day she came home from the office and found every second room vacuumed, the dishes washed, and the laundry done. As you can imagine, this gave her a tremendous lift. You may be thinking, do we need to argue about pitching in? No. What touched my friend more than her husband's cleaning was the I love you written in the dust on every second shelf of the bookcases. Now, I changed the third slightly to leave the other alone. You said leave them be. If I was telling it, it's totally up to you, but leave the other alone to me is more clear. You might find this as a paradox. And that was really good. I would add, okay, let's see. Gunny sacking. Okay, good. You might find this a paradox. This was very good. I liked what you said about being one, they remain separate individuals. And then where I added a slight change, over the years we grow as individuals, we may discover hidden talents in ourselves and develop new interests. Ideally, this will add a new dimension to the relationship, or this may be frightening to your partner. I suggest rejoice in each other's growth, show interest, offer encouragement. Then I love the quote, I'm not going to do anything with that. That's absolutely fine. To hold your relationship together, love each other, communicate openly, share the workload, and when necessary, leave the other alone. At a recent gathering of friends, I don't think you need to bring in COVID. I think we assume what you're talking about, and we never want to depress our audience to focus on what they're sick of. At a recent gathering of friends, we were discussing what keeps couples together. One longtime husband said, the success of our marriage is due to a miraculous substance called love glue. To which his wife replied, you men can call it love glue. We women know it as crazy glue.
Much
So
better.
I tightened the end, delivered it in dialogue. So I respectfully submitted because you did have a superb presentation.
Thank you.
Good. Well, wonderful. And certainly people can write any comments they have about the presentations or the feedback in the chat. I, of course, can't focus on it, but if it makes them a learning experience, that's up to them. I don't know if it's now available to them.
All right, thank you very much, Irene and Patricia. Outstanding. Our next speaker is Jack Lee. Jack joined Toastmasters back in 2008 and has been enjoying the journey ever since. Last year, he got his DTM, a designation he has been striving very hard to obtain for the past 10 years. Throughout the journey, Jack has learned a lot. He has grown a lot and developed a lot. But still, he has a long way to go, a long road to hoe. Please welcome Jack Lee, Chinese way or Canadian way, Chinese way or Canadian way, Jack Lee.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Right off the bat, you can tell from my accent, speaking Chinglish, English with a Chinese flavor. I'm an immigrant to Canada. I spent half of my life in China and the rest of my life here in Canada. I know both Chinese culture and the Canadian culture very well. Canadians are quite different from Chinese. Based on my observation, I find there's one single most significant element that separates Canadians from Chinese. Canadians like to be direct, while Chinese prefer to be indirect. Hence, when dealing with these two groups of people, I employ two different strategies. Dealing with Canadians, I tend to be more direct. When with Chinese, I'm more inclined to be indirect. The only problem is that I often get lost when I come to meet with CBC, Canadian born Chinese. I have a colleague at work, Kevin, a CBC. We both work on an IT project. Kevin is about 10 years younger than I, a typical CBC. He looks like Chinese, speaks perfect English, and thinks like a Canadian. But the more I get to know Kevin, the more I like him, because he's not that Canadian. Actually, he got lots of good qualities from his Chinese heritage. For example, whenever we go out for coffee, always tries to pay for my coffee. A classic of showing respect to people older than you. Very sweet. Until one day. On that day, we had a meeting on a production problem. And I was one of the people to blame because they found a bug in my code along with other. We took turns to speak. When Kevin starts to talk, he targeted my bug and dished out some harsh comments and my code, and saying that if I have done more testing, my bug could have been found and half of the problem could have been avoided. I was so shocked. Why he was so Canadian now? He could have waited until the meeting is over and have a private conversation with me to save my face. Why he chose to be a Canadian when I need him to be a Chinese most. Ladies and gentlemen, Now you know the secrets of how to deal with Chinese and Canadian. Next time, when you run into a guy like me, which way are you going to use? Chinese way or Canadian way? Back to you. Back to your chair.
All right. Well, my challenge is the speech you delivered is very different from the speech you sent. So that gives me a major problem. And so what I am going to do is review, because I spent a lot of time totally rewriting what is your champion speech that my way would win it for you.
I'm sorry, because I guess I got a misunderstanding.
Okay,
here.
good. So no, what I was saying is all I wanted you for this exercise was to leave out the phrase we use, contest chair, etc. Because that, for me, I know you have to do it in a contest, but I, just like our first entrepreneur, I want to teach you how to speak to make money, whether it's in your career or by marketing your practice. That's why I said let it out. So one, the speech you sent me is such a great universal message that is so important at this time in history. So that is what you're going to hear. Now,
Actually, Patricia, I just used the last portion, the last 1/3 of my speech.
yes, but I love the front. So what I would like you to do you have the opening 2 lines? In fact, could you deliver the original, say, 2 paragraphs of your speech?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, that's what because it sets up what follows in a much richer way than what we just heard.
Okay. Absolutely. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Right off the bat, you can tell from my accent, I'm speaking Chinglish. English with flavor. On the streets of Toronto, you can hear English being spiced with all kinds of flavors. Here in Toronto, probably the most diverse city on the planet, we have more than 250 ethnic groups speaking more than 170 languages. Each ethnic group has its own way of life. You got the Chinese, you got the Chinese way. You got Indian, you got Indian way. You got a Canadian, you got a Canadian way.
Great. Now, let's tell you what I did with that, because that sets it up. This is such a colorful way to speak. This is what I did from your original script. I tightened and took out words that were not needed, shortened your sentences, added dialogue, changed the order of the opening, which includes the audience into the conversation, and time is a setup phrase. And can you mute yourself, please? I think there's a little feedback just while we're doing this. And then tighten the close, because a good speech, which is what you sent me, becomes great with this tightening and editing. Your original script was 830 words, of which I edited it down to 754. And this is why I wanted our audience to hear the opening. I changed the first 2 ideas. The first one includes the audience. And it uses an interesting statistic or little known fact, which is one of my favorite ways of opening a presentation. As you may have noticed, on every street in Toronto, you can hear English delightfully spiced with all kinds of flavors. Toronto is probably the most diverse city on the planet. It might interest you to know we have fellow citizens from more than 250 ethnic groups. Together, they speak more than 150 different languages. Each ethnic group has its own way of life. We have Chinese, we live the Chinese way. Indian, who live the Indian way. American, who live the American way. As you can tell, I am speaking Chinglish, English with a Chinese flavor. Before I came to North America, I lived on the other side of the earth, China. Like any Chinese, I lived a typical Chinese way of life. For example, in China, when a good friend asked, "Will you lend me some money?" It was second nature to reach into my wallet, take out everything in there and ask, "Is this enough?" If a so-called friend came to me with the same request, if I didn't want to lend him money, I would need to find a good reason to say no. In the Chinese world, the most important trait is about the face. You are allowed to say no if you say no in such a way to not hurt the other person's face. That is the Chinese way. Before I moved to America to pursue my higher education, I fervently learned English. Now, can you remember what you said about how you learned English?
Yeah.
Can you remember the phrase? I changed it to fervently. I don't know if that's a word you said, but
I said crazy.
You said what, sorry?
I think I said crazy. I was learning English like crazy.
Yes. Which, yeah, I learned it like crazy. That's not a classy way of speaking. If one, you're reporting your senior management, you're talking to a customer or colleague, or you're in a contest. So I fervently learned, or you could say frantically learned. All right, not like crazy. My commitment was to pass the famous English exam, test of English as a foreign language. In the hearing comprehension part of the exam, well, I'm going to leave this out because our audience didn't hear that, did they? I don't think so anyway.
No.
That taught me, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Because this is an important transition line, because we're now talking about Italians. So 26 years ago, I arrived in America. The rule I was determined to live by was, don't borrow money from others, don't lend money to anyone. For a few years, I lived by that rule until one Christmas. When attending university in Denver, Alex was my American roommate. His name was La Fasto, like the famous actor Robert De Niro. I had no idea. That's very interesting. Between La and Fasco, there is a space. La Fasco, a typical Italian last name. One Christmas, Alex's dad, Frank, came to campus to visit him and met me. At first sight, Frank took a $20 bill and placed it in my hands. I turned to Alex, obviously confused. He said, "If Frank insists on giving you money, just take it." Wow, I was astonished. Who could understand these Americans? They give you money without you having to ask. What I realized, some people like Frank live an American way with an Italian flavor. After college, I found myself working as an IT consultant on a project in California. When I met Kevin, who was an ABC, American-born Chinese. He was 10 years younger than me and what I would call a typical banana. Yellow outside and white inside. However, the more I get to know Kevin, the more I liked him because he was not too American. He demonstrated good Chinese qualities from his heritage. For example, during coffee, during breaks, he would attempt to pay for my coffee. A classic Chinese way of showing respect to people older than you. I really appreciated Kevin until one day we had a meeting discussing a production issue. Bugs were found in our code, some caused by me. When it was Kevin's turn, he said, Jack, if you'd conducted more tests, you would have found the bugs. Half of the production issues could have been avoided. I was furious. Why did he have to be so American? He could have waited until the meeting is over and had a private conversation with me to save my face. Why did he choose like an American when I needed him to act Chinese? Since then, I've evolved. I now appreciate the delightfully spiced way of life. Now, can you see your script to what you had there? Because my comment is don't mix your metaphors. You started from the very beginning with spicing and you changed it. Do you have that script?
Yep.
What did you say there? Since then, I've evolved.
Since then, I have evolved and I have get used to more ways of life.
Yes, but you understand this is a perfect time to reinforce your opening premise.
Yes.
Then, ladies and gentlemen, because one of the questions before the opening of the formal opening was about opening and closing a presentation or closing. This is a great way to, and then I tightened this. I tightened, you had, I don't know how many lines, but this is how I closed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Torontonians. Every day we speak English spiced with all kinds of flavors. Let us embrace and celebrate our diverse culture. Let us challenge ourselves to be more sensitive, respectful, and inclusive. Chinese way or American way? Who cares? Let's do the Canadian way.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you, Jack. Let's welcome our next speaker, Rhonda Mauer. Rhonda has been a Toastmaster since June 2009. She focused on developing her leadership skills as well as her speaking skills. She has held various club and district leadership positions and is a past district director for District 60. When speaking, she prefers to use her personal life experiences and the lessons she learned from them as a starting point for writing a speech. After all, personal stories are often funny, the best way to learn and make a speech more memorable and enjoyable for the audience. This is how this speech evolved. Please welcome Rhonda Mauer, embarrassed Rhonda Mauer.
I have never been so embarrassed, never before and not since. I didn't just have a pretty pink flush on my cheeks. I was beet red from my chest, my neck, to the top of my head. I was hot and I could feel my scalp tingling. How do you handle it When you've said something in poor taste, your body has made an impolite noise, or you've just done something that is completely embarrassing. I'm going to share with you the lessons I learned about being embarrassed, my story of embarrassment, and what I learned from that. First of all, acknowledge the situation. Don't just ignore it. That allows people to talk about it more. You might want to say awkward, or excuse me, or yeah, that just happened. Secondly, let it go. Don't dwell on it. Let it go in the moment and beyond. Afterward, think of reading a book, seeing a movie, doing something that lets it go. And finally, forgive yourself. We're human, and humans make mistakes. That humanity in us makes us more engaging and more likable by other people. So do you want to hear my story? I was leaving the elevator and I flung on my sweater and went out to the garage and popped into my tracker. I was getting myself situated, put my seatbelt on, and I hear a knock, knock, knock on the window. I rolled down the window as this businessman is there in this wonderful three-piece suit, trench coat, and briefcase, and says to me, "Here, I think you dropped something." I put my hand out, and what he put into it, I knew immediately what it was. It was a pair of my black lace panties. I picked them up, set them on the seat beside me, quickly rolled up the window, and took off. I couldn't even look at him. I know what happened. As I did my laundry, static cling being what it is, the underwear had stuck to the sweater. And force and gravity, as I flung the sweater around me, made them drop out onto the ground. I can tell you there are some good things about this. They were clean. They were the itty bitty pretty panties and not the huge granny panties. And this is what I've learned. Always do your laundry, your unmentionables, in a laundry bag so that you can keep track of them. Jesse Eisler, an entrepreneur, author, rapper, and owner of the NBA Atlanta Hawks, said, "The best gift you can give yourself is getting over the fear of embarrassment, because then you're completely free to do anything."
Very good job. Great to hear it. And you have a wonderful personality, great smile. And this is a great story. My message to you is to edit it down and don't tell us what we know or assume. So, for example, when you first sent me the script, let's see, where are we here? Yes, you first sent me the script. There were 1,330 words, of which I have edited it down now to 643. Just notice, and this, all the feedback for our speakers is for everybody. When you're using verbs, they are stronger if you have ed on the end rather than ing, as you will see. So add color, add drama, remove steps that the audience knows or assumes. Help us see the building, because we use words to communicate. However, our audience sees what we are saying. Yours is a very visual story, which is great. I need more details. How many apartments, or how big was the building?
It was a 20-story building, and
Okay.
probably.
Now, this is what's so important. And how many units?
From that, I would say close to 180, say.
Okay. Now, whether it's 20 stories or 180 tenants, the more people that might know about this makes it even more dramatic. Because if this was a 4-unit building, chances are everybody knows each other very well. It's almost family. It wouldn't be as embarrassing. So as tiny as that detail is, it adds a flavor to the story. Then at the end, you told us the end. The reveal is the panties, then the aftermath. You talk about unmentionables, which is really an old-fashioned word that our grandmothers probably used. And it would have worked if you hadn't told us what the panties look like. So it's almost like you're trying to be prim and proper, and we know you're a hot babe with these fancy, sexy underwear. So in that case, it doesn't quite match. All right, so here is what I did with it. And you'll see it's tighter, using less words, and perhaps making it even more dramatic. It was the most embarrassing experience of my life. I flushed all over my chest, neck, and face. Not pink, dark, beet red. My temperature soared, my scalp tingled, and my body hummed. My embarrassment lasted all day. How do you handle the situation when you're embarrassed? What do you do when you realize you made a comment that was out of place, or belched in the boardroom, or you walked into an airport men's room again? Do you feel as embarrassed, mortified, and awkward as I do? In the next 4 minutes, you will learn some of the best strategies to handle those humiliating moments. We both, and you could say we both or we all, part of the secret of connecting to the audience, especially in a venue like this, you're really having a conversation. Even if there were 200 people in front of me, if you use you rather than all of us, you make a connection. In this case, either would be fine. We both or we all know they will. I'll say this again. In the next 4 minutes, you will learn some of the best strategies to handle those humiliating moments. We both know they will happen again because we're human. Have you noticed time turns embarrassing situations into sources of amusement for our friends? I am finally ready to tell you my story and the lessons I learned from it. Naturally, there are many and varied ways of dealing with embarrassment. However, my research finds there are 3 common techniques for dealing with the situation and the aftermath. Acknowledge the situation. Don't avoid it and pretend it didn't happen. Avoidance can make the humiliation you feel and those talking about the situation last longer. Acknowledge it by using words such as awkward, yeah, that just happened, or even excuse me. You can acknowledge with humor when the situation involves you, not when it involves others who don't want to be seen to be laughing at someone else's misfortune. Let it go. Don't relive it. Let it go. In the moment, don't repeat the story over and over. Reminding others draws attention to it. Once the situation has passed, let it go. Afterwards, don't relive it like a movie over and over in your mind and reignite the pain. Distract yourself. Go for a walk, read a book, or listen to music. Forgive yourself. You're human, and every human makes mistakes. Embarrassment can show others that you care, and your care can make you appear likable and endear you to them. By now, you're probably thinking, Rhonda, when do I hear your story? Now, I would like to know, just because what happened puts where you are now in context. I would have liked to know 5 years ago. I'm going to say that, but put that in your story. 5 years ago, I just stepped out of the elevator in my 20-story apartment building and was headed to the garage as I flung my cardigan over my shoulders. Just as I was strapped myself into my tracer, there was a knock, knock, knock on my window. Standing outside was my neighbor, a very good-looking businessman, dressed impeccably in a three-piece suit and a trench coat, with briefcase in hand. As I lowered the window, he smiled broadly and said, "You dropped this." I held up my hand and immediately recognized what the item was: my skimpy black lace panties. I fumbled "thank you" as I set them on the seat and quickly rolled up my window. Later, the businessman asked if I would like to go for coffee. I demurely declined. How did I get in this situation? While doing my laundry and static cling being what it is, my panties stuck to my cardigan until force and gravity took over when I flung it over my shoulders. On the positive note, they were itty-bitty pretty panties and not huge, ugly granny panties, and they were clean. What I learned: use a lingerie bag when using a public washing machine in a building with 180 other tenants. At the time, I was in my early 20s and very conscious of what others think of me. As most of us at that age, I was self-conscious, anxious to fit in, and judged myself harshly. As I've matured, gained life experience and a better sense of self, I am not so easily embarrassed. When it happens, I recover more quickly. It takes maturity and confidence to learn, acknowledge the situation, let it go, and forgive yourself. So I used a review of your 3 points as the close. Personally, myself, this is a story about you. A quote, as good as it fits in, doesn't belong there. So you'll see it's tightened. You see, you don't have to say, I walked to the car, I opened the door, I stepped in, I strapped myself, I rolled down the window. We know if you do a good job to put us in the scene, you don't have to tell us every move we know.
Okay.
And that'll make it tighter. Less words make it more powerful. But you have a perfect personality and a great speech.
Thank you so much, Patricia.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Rhonda. Time flies. And our final speaker is Johnson Soanes. Johnson is an accountant and has been a Toastmaster for 9 years. He is very keen to elevate his public speaking skills to the next level. Today, he would like to share a turning point in his life with this speech. Please welcome Johnson Soanes. Say no to the S word. Say no to the S word, Johnson Soanes.
Do you remember your childhood years? An unknown author wrote that childhood is like being drunk. Everyone remembers what you did, except you. Grown-ups remembered my childhood years as being outgoing, sociable, mischievous. However, as an adult, I became reserved, reticent, restrained. In other words, I had become the S word, a shy person. For a long time, I considered myself to be an introvert until I discovered that there is a distinction between shyness and introversion. Shyness is the fear of negative judgment, whereas introversion is quiet confidence and a preference for low stimulation environments. Shyness stops a person from reaching their full potential. It also prevents them from making their voice heard. You may be shy, or you know someone close to you who is one. In the next 6 minutes, you will know how I overcame my shyness, and you will get tools on how this can be conquered permanently. In my long career as an accountant, I was always more comfortable dealing with numbers than with people. The few presentations I gave at the workplace were always stressful, sweaty, and short. Five years ago, I unexpectedly reconnected with an old friend. When we met, I said, "Tommy, you look so lively and vibrant. I've never seen you like this before. What happened to you?" He excitedly told me, "Johnson, I went to this amazing personal development course and it has transformed my life." He went on to describe the positive impact it had on his life. And then he said, "I want you to go for it too." Have you been for any personal development course? I had never been to one, so naturally I was quite skeptical. But Tommy convinced me to enroll in this 3-day course. And just like he said, it was very enlightening. Over there, I uncovered a few unpleasant incidents in my childhood, and I never realized the impact it would have on me as an adult. Growing up in India, in the 9th grade, one day my teacher told me, "Johnson, I want you to represent the school at the inter-school debate contest." What? I was shocked. I never liked debates. I'd never taken part in them before. But I couldn't say no. I had to go. Can you imagine being pushed onto a stage in a large auditorium, packed with hundreds of school kids, all looking at you with great expectation? The other debaters delivered their points of view with gusto. And here I stood, sweating profusely and reading timidly from my notes. That was so nerve-wracking. That day, I let those school kids down. I let my school down, and my self-confidence left me. From that point onwards, I would avoid giving a talk in any setting. Fast forward many years later, living in Toronto and attending that course, I uncovered this incident and a couple more that had bruised my self-esteem. I process the negative emotions attached to these incidents, and then I let them go. I freed myself of them. Soon, I realized I was less self-conscious when I was interacting with others. I no longer felt that I was being judged. I began to give longer presentations at the workplace and outside. The stress and the sweat were now replaced by slides and smiles. I'm here to tell you that no one is born shy. Shyness is usually the result of traumatic incidents that have generally happened in childhood years. Sadly, some of the causes of this includes abusive or authoritarian parents, guardians, teachers, bullies, and other painful experiences. However, there's a proven way to overcome this. It's in 3 steps, which have helped me. Number 1 is to uncover the source or the root cause of your shyness. Sometimes these incidents are so deeply embedded in our subconscious mind that we are no longer aware of them or of their impact on our lives. The second step is to accept them and process them, however painful these emotions might have been. And the third step is to just let them go by bringing about an emotional closure. And then you will be free and will begin to live life to the fullest. It's never too late to change the course of your life for the better. Thanks to my friend Tommy, who urged me to go to that course, I stand here before you free from the clutches of shyness. I wholly endorse the words of psychologist Bernardo Carducci when he said, "No one is born shy."
Wonderful, great job, great message. So what I am suggesting to you, and this is how everybody takes a good speech and makes it great. You have a transcript, which you of course sent me. Look through the quality of the words. And this was true with everybody, and it's true with our friends watching. For example, you have words like it and long. What is it and what is long? People, I changed to us because you want to involve your audience. Old become long time, went become attended, big became enormous. And you move your story forward with dialogue. Let your friend tell us, and we are listening to him, which you will see. For example, he replied, "Johnson, I feel so excited and alive." You'll see in my script, I'm delivering it, whereas he described the course and the positive impact it had on him. No, we want to hear what he had to say. And then you shorten your presentation with dialogue. Now, there was a time, and this is a technique, and I have a certain bias about it. When you are doing a good job at painting the scene, keep it there. Now, your intention is to involve the audience. When you're telling a good story, they are involved. When you say, "Have you ever been to a personal development course?" you are taking us out of the scene. And to me, and it's my bias, I want you to stay in the scene because I am with you. What I'm doing, and you'll notice I'm elevating the pressure of when you were in 9th grade. And it's good as an Indian child. Now, I have many Indian friends, and I know your commitment to education, this is drummed into you by your family, and we attribute everything we know about our Indian friends to your experience, we understand the pressure is on. And I've also made this the most nerve-wracking experience of your life. I like the expression fast forward. However, it doesn't work here. You can't force fast forward many years later. No, it's either 12 years later or fast forward 12 years or fast forward the next stage, living in America. You told us one example and you said, and more. The idea is in a short presentation, I think we can assume that our lives are full of tough situations, but don't introduce ideas you have absolutely no time to develop. And you will notice, and this is a question I ask all my coaching clients, who are the people? Now, this is my version of how I try and put the pressure on. How vividly do you remember your childhood years? It has been said that childhood is like being drunk. Have you noticed everybody remembers what you did except you? My parents never seemed to forget a moment of my childhood. They never got tired of telling me, Johnson, you were outgoing, sociable, and so mischievous. You were delightful. At some point, I became reserved, reticent, and restrained. In other words, I became the S word, a shy person. For many years, I thought I was an introvert until I discovered there is a major distinction between shyness and introversion. Shyness is the fear of negative judgment, whereas introversion is quiet confidence with a preference for minimal stimulation environments. Shyness stops us from fully living our full potential, as well as prevents us from having our voice heard. You may be shy or know someone close to you who is. In the next few minutes, you will learn how I overcame my shyness. If this is your challenge, you will understand the simple steps of a process that conquers shyness permanently. In my 2-decade career as an accountant, I always felt more comfortable dealing with numbers than people. Every presentation I delivered at work was stressful, sweaty, and short. 5 years ago, I had the good fortune of reconnecting with a lifetime friend. When we met, I said, Tommy, you've never looked as vibrant as lively. What happened to you? He replied, Johnson, I am so excited and alive. I recently attended a personal development course and it's transformed my life. It made such a positive impact. You need to enroll in the 3-day course. I'm not sure if you've enrolled in a personal development course. If so, I bet you were like me, skeptical. However, because of my friend's enthusiasm and encouragement, I accepted his challenge. Much to my delight and amazement, he had not oversold the benefits. The course was enlightening. The first step was to uncover a few unpleasant incidents that happened in my childhood years. It was eye-opening to understand the negative impact these would have on me as an adult. When growing up in India in the 9th grade, my teacher sternly told me, Johnson, you have the honor of representing the school at the upcoming inter-school debate contest. I gasped, why me? I've never been interested in debates. From nothing to representing the school, is she crazy or trying to psychologically damage me for life? As an Indian child, I could not say no. I had to obey her. It was the most nerve-wracking experience of my life. Imagine being forcibly pushed onto an enormous stage in a magnificent auditorium, packed with hundreds of students from every grade. They sat there staring at the stage with enthusiastic expectation. I wish you could have been there. The other debaters delivered their points of view with clarity and confidence. Then it was my turn. I nervously walked forward. I timidly read my notes. My hands shook, my face reddened, and sweat poured down my face and back. It was the single most disappointing and devastating day of my life. In 10 minutes, I let down my teacher, hundreds of students, and our school. From that day, I set a new goal. Never again would I speak in any setting at any time. Fast forward 20 years, now a professional attending my first self-development course, I was transported to that incident that had adversely affected my self-esteem. I processed the negative emotions that had negatively affected my life, and then I let them go. In a moment, I freed myself forever. Within a short period of time, I realized that I felt 100% confident and secure when interacting with co-workers, clients, and senior leadership. I no longer felt I was being judged. I volunteered to deliver presentations at work and outside. Based on my experience, I promise you, no one is born shy. Shyness is mainly the result of traumatic experiences, usually in childhood. Sadly, some of the causes of these incidents are, some of the causes for this includes abusive or authoritative parents, guardians, and teachers. Many of them well-intentioned. No matter who or what causes shyness and lack of confidence, there is a proven 3-step process. So with that, I will stop there in order of time, but I hope you got an idea of the suggestions. Just one more. Your gestures don't need to be that dramatic. I would just deliver your message and let your hands do what they want. Pretend no one ever gave you feedback to be overly dramatic with your gestures, because everything we do adds to or distracts from our message, and gestures add to, but when they're overdone, they distract from the quality of your words. And I'm glad you are now over your shyness so you can share your message with us. Good job.
Thank you. You brought it alive. Thank you so much.
Patricia, thank you so much for your feedback and for all of the incredible information that you've given to us today. I know that I've learned all kinds of things, and I think I can fairly safely speak for our attendees in saying that we've all got a lot of things that we want to learn. I know I'm going to be going back to watch the video later on to learn more as well.